Okay, so we've got cool. So, where is it? So hopefully everyone can see my screen. Okay, so welcome to our webinar series. And we've got our karakia to start. So tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, taikie. Thank you everyone for coming. A quick intro about the webinar series. So we started the webinar series based on another event that we run through Christchurch Envirohub called Green Drinks. And we realized that was quite popular with having multiple speakers coming and talking to people at the events. So much so that we started running out of slots to run the event. So we started having the online webinar series to enable more people to come online. The feedback was mainly that we wanted to keep the conversations flowing and we wanted to have an opportunity for people to showcase their mahi outside of the green drinks. So we're hoping these webinars will have a positive and interactive space for you and share knowledge, swap local stories, and get inspired by the awesome environmental mahi that's happening in our sector. Tonight we have Chanelle van der Hey. Chanelle is the Volunteer Regional Coordinator for Animal Policy International, an organization looking to improve the welfare and lives of farmed animals through evidence-based research, education, and advocacy. Chanelle will explore how aligning import policies with our local standard is crucial for true environmental and ethical consistency with a New Zealand lens. Chanelle has a lot of insightful information on such an impactful topic, and I'm really excited to hear more about how we can all play a part. Now, if people want to just say hello, there's only a small group of us tonight, so it would be good to have a more hands-on approach. I'll just leave it to the floor if anyone wants to introduce themselves, and that's totally okay if you don't as well. You're more than welcome to just watch as an observer. No worries. Okay, so that's enough from me. I'll hand over to Chanelle now. So Chanelle, I'm just going to exit my screen sharing. Stop share. Okay. That should allow you to now screen share yourself.
Yes. Can you see my screen right now?
I cannot.
This thing. I'm gonna try again then.
Because it worked just before for us, didn't it?
It did. Is it like it's always like this, isn't it?
Here we go. Oh, you've got a multi-window.
Here we go. Not this one. We're almost there, and we're gonna go on this one here. Perfect. And I'm gonna go back to the beginning because this is where we want to be. Here we are. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, thank you for coming. This is a great opportunity for me to present you Animal Policy International and what we're working on right now. So this webinar is called Closing the Welfare Gap. And I'm actually going to start by asking a little question. If anyone knows when New Zealand Aotearoa actually started the Animal Welfare Act and when it passed in legislation, does anyone know when would that be, when we started caring about animal welfare here? It's actually been quite a long time ago because it's since 1999. And so this country actually been one of the first country caring about animal and their welfare. So much so that they decided to start with the 5 freedom. And the 5 freedom is just to make sure that all the animals have enough food, enough shelter, enough space to live. And it's also the first country in the entire world who decided to ban the research on apes. So I think there's like some things to be proud of here. Again, anything that's been recently done in New Zealand, any laws that's been like recently passed. Does anyone has any idea of like a new law that's been passed for animal welfare?
Maybe one to do with farm animals, so chickens and cows.
Yes.
So
Yes,
stopping cages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. It's quite true. So we do have the battery cages ban, and that was in 2012. And so we progressively phase out until 3 years ago, and so now there's no more battery cages in the entire country. It's completely illegal. The country also recognize sentience for animals. So it means that animals are no more objects that actually feel things. And we recognize that in law. So that's since 2015. We also have a cosmetic testing ban. Even if New Zealand doesn't actually test any of this, like there's no cosmetic testing done in New Zealand, it's still a good thing to do to show to other countries that we actually care. Hot branding ban, that's a new one. It actually just started at the beginning of the month, so we can be really proud of that. Another one that's related to cages is the sow stalls ban. So again, we had like 6 years to phase out, and so now there's no more sow stalls anymore. We started doing the same with farrowing crates. So in 2020, we decided that we're going to phase out until 2025. So at the end of last year, you were supposed to have a complete ban on it. But the new government decided to actually stop it and maybe give another 10 years. And they're not even sure about that. They might just actually not ban it at all. So it's a little bit of a loss here for animal welfare, unfortunately. And so what Animal Policy International is working on is the actual import across the world, because we do have those amazing animal welfare laws like we just saw. New Zealand really, really cares about the animals and farmed animals. But unfortunately, those laws can still be bypassed by import and by trade. And we're going to get into it a little bit more. But first, I wanted to see with you, why should I care? Like why as a environmentalist, how is this actually related to why I care and why we should see that together today? So why does it concern me? Well, first of all, it is impacting the climate, industrial factoring, farming system. And so that's going to be mostly common in the countries that we're exporting from, do have a higher greenhouse gas emission per unit of protein compared to New Zealand's pasture-based system. So it is going to impact the climate. It means that importing meat produced via intense methods, while it contradicts the global effort to reduce the carbon footprint of the food supply. So if you go like more in detail, we do have policy consistency in ethics and trade. What I want to show you here is that allowing the import of products made with methods that are like illegal in New Zealand undermine the country and environmental leadership. and creates a market distortion that could pressure domestic farmers to lower their own environmental and welfare standards to actually compete with the other countries. So it's going to be a loss for us in the long run. And it's not only impacting animal welfare, but it's going to impact any other, any other trades we have with other countries, any other environmental law that we have here in the country. Another way to see that is also see at the resources inefficiency. So cage and intensive farming often require more feed and water to produce the same amount of meat compared to well-managed intensive grazing. And that also going to contribute to global resource depletion and land use change. A third one is going to be the biodiversity loss and land use. So it's a little bit related to the one I just told you about before. So this system rely heavily on growing monoculture crops. So like soy and corn, we all know that cows and pigs are mostly being fed by soy and corn when they're caged. And that is actually going to lead to deforestation and habitat destruction in other parts of the world, mainly in Brazil. So, you know, like it is something we should care about, even if it's not the deforestation here. Having deforestation in other part of the world might impact the climate. In general, it's not just going to impact Brazil.
So just out of curiosity, is that so that they can create farms for corn and soy? So they want to deforest so they can use that land for farming?
For the monoculture crops.
Monoculture crops,
yeah. So the soy or the corn is going to be grown again, like in Brazil most of the time. So they're going to deforest part of Brazil to do some monoculture there, and then get the soy and send the soy straight away to other countries who actually do those intense farming. And it can be the US, it can be Canada, it can be China or Southeast Asia. So it is still, you know, something that was going to impact the entire world and not just Brazil. We can also look at the waste concentration because that also going to degrade local ecosystem. And so while they use less land per animals, because, you know, that can be a counter argument, being like, yeah, but farmed animal or like in cages, they actually use less square meter than another one that's going to be in a pasture. And that's true. But still, because they're going to require more food, they're actually going to take more land because it's going to be it's going to take more square meter to grow the food that they will need than to just let them graze and eat and finding food, I would say, almost by themselves. And the last one is pollution concentration. So again, animals who are confined in high density and producing massive amount of manure and urine in a small area. And that actually creates a really high risk of nutrient runoff. So, for example, nitrogen, it's usually the biggest one is nitrogen. It goes into the waterways. It can cause like different things, especially like algal blooms. It can also create like new dead zones in the ocean. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in outdoor farming because it does, but it's not as concentrated as with cage farming. We also see a much higher concentration of ammonia and methane in the air. And that's actually going to affect the local air quality. So all the countries that still have those system of like cage farmed animal, it's actually going to pollute the air quality of that country. So those are the reason why it actually concerns every one of us, and it's not just about animal welfare. I don't know if anyone has a question. No? Is
Just having a
everything?
look in the chat. No, no new questions. I
No?
think you're just telling us all the answers before we need to ask them.
So I can let you know about the rest. So
Yep.
Animal Policy International is actually advocating for governments in higher welfare countries to restrict import that don't meet our local standards. So I'm going to explain that a little bit better. But first, I want to show you what source stores are. What are they? They're actually narrow metal crates, and they're going to confine pregnant sows throughout their pregnancy. They're constrained. Why? Because they're like too narrow for the sow to actually turn around. So as you can see on the picture here, they cannot turn around. They can just look straight forward. They cannot stretch. They cannot walk. It's really harsh on their body. They're using it to prevent fighting. They say they're using it to reduce injury, and also because it's way easier to manage everyone, to just do the feeding and the monitoring. It's way easier, but it prevents natural behavior. It also causes joint pain, muscle atrophy, and obviously a lot of stress. Can you imagine if you could just stand up and lie down, but never be able to stretch, walk, turn around? It will bring you a lot of stress. What is the difference with farrowing crates? Well, farrow crates are a little bit different because it's after the pregnancy. So it's actually when you already have all the piglets around. And it is a little bit the same. Like they also cannot turn around. They don't really can stretch or walk. So it's very similar. It's just on another phase of the pregnancy. So those, it's amazing because those actually being banned in New Zealand. We are not using those anymore, which is an amazing win. And hopefully soon we will not be able to use foreign crates either.
So just to be
So that's
clear,
one.
so
Does anyone have question about those ones?
I was gonna say, so this just to be clear, is the sow stalls they're still?
Oh, I'm sorry. We cannot really hear you suddenly. Oh, is it just me?
Oh no no, there you go.
Yeah.
I've got it now. So sow
Yeah.
stalls they're still around, but the farrowing crates. Oh sorry, the sow stalls are banned, but the farrowing crates still around, still legal.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. So, firing crates, they were supposed to be banned in 2025, but the government decided to give it another 10 years to maybe forever. So hopefully, we'll be able to see the end of it by 2035. Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
That's crazy.
It is very sad. And it's the same for battery cages. They also don't exist anymore in New Zealand. So what are they? Well, they're wire cages. So as you can see here, they're kind of like those wire cages. And it's, for egg laying, ends to be confined in a really, really small cage. And like the space, if you take just like a A4, so A4 is usually the normal kind of piece of paper you would find, or it's actually smaller than that for an entire chicken. And like they're usually pretty big those days. So they cannot spread their wings, they cannot perch. They cannot also do some dove baiting. So I don't know if anyone has chicken at home, but you can see that they're like so happy when they can do all those things. And unfortunately, in those cages, they cannot do any of that. And so the purpose here is again because it's easy. So it's easy for the people to just collect the eggs. They also say that it's easy for disease control, although some research showing that it might actually not be true. And it's also, very, very efficient on the space for just having like a large scale production. So the welfare impact, of course, is feather loss because they cannot turf bath, they cannot clean themselves. There's also going to be bone fragility just because, they cannot walk, they cannot do anything. Muscle atrophy again, and then severe frustration of natural behavior. So it is still, like something that when you see it can be very, very impactful for their well-being. We still have something else in New Zealand called colony cages. So they can be similar in the way that it's still not great. They're still in cages, but they're actually larger than an A4, and there was like multiple hen in cages together. But that still unfortunately remain legal in New Zealand. I don't know if anyone has a question about this one. No? So those two here, they don't exist anymore in New Zealand, but they still exist in other countries. And other countries, we actually take our eggs and take our meat from. So I'm going to give you a little example here. This is an example in the UK, but it also applies to us. So the UK decided around like 2000 to actually do the ban on sow stall, like in New Zealand. But the funny thing you see is that everything, so here, this is the line from like import of meat, of pork meat. And this is the local meat that was produced in the UK. And so the funny thing you see is that in 2000, when they decided to ban the sow stall, well, the production in the UK just dropped for actually the import to take a much higher percentage of the supermarket range. So in the UK decided to import more meat from abroad that was coming from still cage animals instead of relying on their own law of sow stall ban. So this is something that we see too in New Zealand, is that since we decided to let the animals go cage free, well, we're actually importing more meat that's coming from farmed animals that are being caged abroad. So it's a little bit, hypocrite, I would say. Does anyone know how much pork meat is found in supermarkets and how much of that is actually being imported from abroad?
Oof. Would you? I would say I don't know the kg weightage, but I'd say imported. It's probably like maybe 80%. I know we
80%. Oh,
to
yes.
yeah. Why I figured that we export quite a lot of the meat that we grow ourselves, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about eggs? And then when I'm saying eggs, I'm not talking about fresh eggs. I'm talking about any other kind of so liquid eggs, powdered eggs. Does anyone know how much of that we actually importing in New Zealand
I'll see if anyone can
instead of?
say. Feel free to use the chat if you want to answer these questions, guys.
So yeah, here it's like how much of that we import from other countries, and also where do those imports are from? Does anyone know where we're actually importing our meats and eggs from?
Mm,
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
can show
say the
you.
US, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The US is on the list, definitely.
Mm.
So how much pork meat do you actually find in supermarket that's being imported? I would say it's around 60%. So if you just take on 1 year time, there's actually 50 ton of that meat being imported to New Zealand. So that represents 540,000 pigs that we import from abroad to New Zealand. And in those 540,000 pigs, the majority of them are actually coming from cages. So 60% of the pork we're consuming in New Zealand is actually coming from cages. And that being said, it's knowing that we actually have a law here that bans those cages. So it's still quite a high percentage. For eggs, and again, when I'm talking about eggs, I'm not talking about fresh eggs because we're not really importing any fresh eggs because that would be that would not work. But when I'm saying eggs, it's going to be liquid eggs, it's going to be powdered eggs, and we use eggs in a lot of things. So again, on a year, we're going to actually import 996 ton, and that's such a high number. And where are we actually importing all of that from? Well, here's the map. So we do the US, we do Canada, China, Australia, Thailand, a little bit of like some of the European country like the UK, Spain, and Italy. So as you can see here, there's kind of like an index about animal protection at the bottom just here. And G is obviously the worst. So it means like, animals are like still in cages with the worst welfare protection, all the way to C that is a little bit better. So as you can see, we still import from countries that are like mostly around E to F, unfortunately. So one example here, it's mulesing. We do import a lot of our wool from Australia. I mean, actually, the entirety of it comes from Australia, and unfortunately, they can still practice it, and that's going to leave a really big scar on the animal. It's going to be very painful, and they're never going to really recover from it. So that scar is going to be there for life. So it's a pretty harsh way to go about it. And it's actually illegal in New Zealand. So we're importing all of that, 100% of it from Australia, while it's actually illegal to do it here. I don't know if anyone has it. Yeah.
I was going to say, so do you think a couple of questions for that then? So the first one being, if we're making it law for ourselves to not be able to do that practice, but then outsourcing it from other countries that do that practice, do you think that's just a way of us getting around our own laws to cut costs?
Yes, it could be. I think there's like more than that. I think, there's more politics around that.
Because
But it could, yes.
I was just going to say, we often export meat for a higher cost in another country than, oh, sorry, it'll be a lower cost in another country and higher in our own, wouldn't it? So like
Yeah,
beef, for example.
yes. Yeah, I think it's all about, like trade, competition. There's a lot of things. I think if we start talking about trade, we can like talk about it for another 2 hours of like, why are we doing it? How is it actually working? And who's actually benefiting from it? So yeah, is it a way to be able to do whatever we want to do and detoning like some laws? It might be. I'm not. It might be a little bit like too much like speculation on my part to be like that's the only reason. But it's definitely one way. It's definitely one way to still here do some live lamb cutting and at the same time ban it in all countries. So we still have the image of New Zealand being for animal welfare, but actually we're still outsourcing animal cruelty from other places. And so that's not very fair to anyone. Another example is the one we talked about. It's battery cages. So I told you how awful it can be, and that's mostly going to come again from Australia or from Thailand. Pork meat, again, a lot of it's coming from the US, from Canada, and from Europe, and they're still also in cages. Some countries in Europe are not using those anymore, but we still we're still gonna take, I think like most of the pork meat's actually coming from Spain right now. And so we could go for the farmers who are not using cages, but we don't. So there's a possibility to still get meat from those countries, from animals, farmed animals that haven't been in cages, but we don't do it, unfortunately. And again, same for the fish. We take a lot of the fish from China, while we could actually just fish here in better condition. And so the expected impact that animal policy is predicting is that we could actually make the life better for 9 million fish. That's such a high number. 500,000 pigs, 300,000 chickens and sheep. It's harder to tell the exact number for war, but it would be like several thousands as well. So that would be life-changing for so many animals. We can actually have an impact here. And on top of that, it would set an international precedent. And that means that no country in the world decided to do that yet. And so if we are the first one doing it, other countries will follow us. Here, I just wanted to kind of show you how sometimes you can think that you're buying some meat or products actually from New Zealand, born and raised, I would say, but we're still being misled. As you can see, like some meat company apologize for misleading labeling because they say that the country's origin is New Zealand when it's actually India. So it is, even if you try to get some meat that is from New Zealand, because you want for the animals to have a better life and not be mistreated in cages, you still might be lied to. So you can always read the labels. The labels, again, can be misleading. I find some for pork. If you find one of those 4 labels, they're actually from New Zealand, you can trust in those ones. I was trying to find other examples, but it's actually really, really hard and really made me realize that it is very complicated, especially if you have several ingredients, to know exactly where your meat, your eggs, or fish are coming from. It is not easy. It's not easy to know if they're born here, if they're raised here, or if they've been like slaughtered here, or if any of the ingredients are actually also from here. So that might be another issue that we could look at some point, but just to give you the information, that's actually not as easy as just being like, oh, I'm going to the supermarket, I'm just trusting the brand that's telling me that everything's from New Zealand. It's unfortunately not as easy. And now you might ask me, okay, well, how do we change that? It looks pretty bad. So how do we actually do something about it? And that's why I'm here. And that's why Animal Policy International is here, is to help you ask people who are in charge to change all of that. And so here I am. I'm actually advocating for policy change here, but it can be also straight away with politicians. And so this is how laws are actually passed and enforced. And then after that, it actually becomes like a standard. And then if the standards are raised here, then maybe Europe is going to be like, oh, well, New Zealand is doing pretty well. Maybe we should also raise those standards. And then maybe North America would follow with other countries. And all of that will lead to animal suffering being reduced. So it can actually work if we all do it together. And I'm just going to quickly show you like a little video.
We have 11,420 signatures that are going to go on this petition and going to Parliament to make our voices heard that it's time to stop cruel imports now. This is a matter of integrity, fairness, and our collective moral responsibility.
To put it simply, our farmers really care about their animals. It doesn't matter where the animal is raised. Their welfare matters and they deserve a good life.
And if it's not acceptable on our farms, it should not be acceptable on our supermarket shelves.
We're effectively and knowingly outsourcing cruelty. Animal welfare matters no matter what your postcode is or your country of origin.
Kiwis believe that it's time to stop cruel imports now.
We should always be striving to improve animal welfare conditions here in New Zealand and internationally.
New Zealanders fought hard for these things to happen and we didn't expect to see them in our supermarkets.
The bill, it goes in the biscuit tins today, and I'll be seeking the signatures from my fellow parliamentary colleagues.
Get your MPs on the message that this matter will not go away and to support this bill and move it forward.
So yeah, that was just a little video to show you that New Zealand, some MPs in New Zealand actually want to move that bill forward, and maybe it's just up to us to push them a little bit. So what can you do? What can you do to push this bill to go forward and for actually not importing animal products that are from farmed animals that are being in cages, but only following the laws that we have here in New Zealand and then enforcing those laws on the meat and eggs and wool that we import inside the country. So there's like a few ways you can do it. One of the ways actually sending an email to Labour on New Zealand First, saying that you actually care about that, and we actually going to all do it together. I'm going to show you how you can do it for Labour, and if you want to do it for New Zealand First, you can also do it later. Another way to do it is to write straight away to your MP. They are here to actually listen to you. So you can ask them during the meeting. You can also send an email. But the way we actually like to do it here, we send them postcards. So it's a nice way of doing it. It's very fun, and it's actually free to send a postcard to your MP or minister. So those are like little things you can do, but that can be like a great change at the end. And so you might ask me, okay, well, why do you want for me to write to my MP? Is it really going to change anything? Well, it's actually going to change a lot. It shows that you're generally supporting what we're doing here. And then if, the MP think that, oh, the public cares about this, I might actually let NGO tell me about it a little bit more. And then, it might actually make things move forward. So I think it's a great way to also apply a direct democracy. To actually have a say into what we want, into our future. And so if you do it for this bill here, you can also do it for something else. So it's a good exercise for also like other bills and law you want to see passed. And so here we can do it together. You can write to your MP, but like here we just like quickly gonna just do an email to Labour. So I'm just gonna show you how it works. You just have to go up on this one here. And it's just like send a powerful message to Labour. Because it's too cruel to produce here, while it's too cruel to import as well. So it's really, really easy. You just put your name. So I'm just going to put here, I'm just going to put my name. I'm just putting my last name here. If you want to do it at the same time as I'm doing it, go ahead. It's really, really easy. It just takes like a few seconds. And then you can create a custom message.
Are you able to put the link in the chat?
Yes. Yes,
that would be easier for people to paste it in.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I'm just putting it quickly in the chat. Here you are. Oops. And I'm going back here. Here we are. So you already have a message that's been there for you, so you don't have to do one. But if you want to do one that's a little bit more I would say personal, go ahead, you know, the more personal, better. But if you don't have a lot of time, which I totally understand, you already have everything there. And it's going to send it, you know, to a couple of different Labour parties. So that's it. That was it. Just putting your name, just, you know, having the message there. You can take the time to read it, and then just sending the email.
Brilliant.
And that just like really like took 2 seconds. So that's great.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Is that all your slides done?
Oh,
Or have you still
sorry,
got
what?
more? Oh no, you've still got some more.
Yeah, I have just a few. Oops, we're almost done. And if you also want to be more involved, I'm here to help you be more involved. So if you ever want to actually help us, you know, do anything, organize campaign actions across New Zealand, I'm doing a couple of like actions here in Christchurch. So yeah, you can just contact us, and then we can just get in touch. And that's it. That's it for today. Does anyone has like anything they wanted to say or a question?
I had a question. So
Yes.
with when we were talking about having more impact on local council and government, is there any
Yes.
particular submissions that people should be looking out for, or any websites where there might be templates of submissions, or groups that tend, or different ministries that put out opportunities to submit on this sort of thing? Or is it very much a kind of like letter style format, which you've just suggested with your link there about how you can have a voice? Because yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think on this specific matter, it's unfortunately only going to go through with Animal Policy International. They don't. It really depends also on the party. It's sometimes not as easy to have this direct communication with some of the political party than others. But on this specific issue, yeah, unfortunately, it's going to go through Animal Policy International right now. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yep, I guess. Yeah.
I can also put the link of the website. If you want to have like a little bit more of a look at the website, I can just put the link here.
Yeah, if you add that in, that would be great.
Here you go. Anything else that everyone else has, you know, any question? You can also use the chat. I'm really happy to answer any question that's in the chat.
No more questions from the group. It's okay. So I'll just bring up the chat.
Yeah, I hope that was really clear. Like it's, you know, it's a really interesting topic because it touched to animal welfare, but also to like so many different things as well. It touched to like, why are we importing? How are we doing the import? You know, it asking also, how do we see ourselves in 10 years? What kind of laws? Because like this is just like one law that's part of something that can be bigger as well. We're talking about animal welfare, but again, we can also talk about like environment. We can talk about how the farmers also survive here in New Zealand, having those laws compared to the laws that have been done internationally, and why do we import, you know, all of that meat coming from farmed animals that are being in cages and not and actually asking farmers here to respect animal welfare when we don't do the same abroad. And that, you know, like those topics and those questions don't only can also be asked for other things. around environment and around social justice. So I think it's like one very interesting way to enter that discussion. It's farm animals being caged. But then it can lead to a lot of other questions, a lot of other topics that we can look about.
Yeah, it definitely has a larger scale of theory and understanding, doesn't it? There's a lot of connected parts to that. But no, I think we might have to have you back on to talk about different connections there with that sort of topic, because there is a lot to explore in that area.
Yeah, and it's really hard to only do 40 minutes 40 minutes of it. I'm really grateful that everyone just stayed through. I had like a lot of different things to say today, and it took a while, but I'm really, really happy that everyone just like stayed on and was happy.
No, it's a very interesting topic. So just before I let everyone go for the evening, I just wanted to let people know that we had a couple of cool events coming up. So we have the next speaker event, which will be about Malcolm Long from Ōpawaho Heathcote River Network, talking to a research study that he's done on impacts of climate change on rivers. So I'm just adding, so keep an eye on our Facebook for that one. Our next green drinks will be from Gloria Del Porta, who will take us through building resilient communities and what resiliency means. So I'll just add the event to the chat there for anyone interested. And then lastly, we had our environmental network gathering, which we will be hearing from City Council about how the environmental community can more effectively influence council decision making, particularly in ways that lead to improved funding outcomes for the environment sector. So that does have some relation about having more influence on council-led decision making and overall policies. But anyway, Chanelle, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for your time and such an interesting talk. I think you've opened my eyes at least for all the imports that we're doing and still the treatment that's being done and the double standards we have around, we'll say we won't put animals in cages, but then just exporting or importing animals from other countries that are still doing that. So I definitely learned a lot tonight.
Great.
But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and I definitely think we'll have to have you back at some stage to talk on expanding on that topic a bit further, I think.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much as well. That was great.
No worries.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
Yeah, everyone have a lovely evening. See you later.